You gotta give me one thing. I'm a scary judge of talent.
Adolphus Washington back-to-back plays.
The Detroit Pistons select Luke Kennard from Duke University.
Welcome back, everybody. Triple Double Podcast time. Hope you guys enjoyed the holiday break. We've been away for a couple weeks here as our producer, Jason Morrow, is now a married man. Sorry, ladies. But we're back for another episode. As we tweeted out, I think last week, we've got a very special guest today. We've got Eric Horstman. Eric, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on board, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And Eric's a very busy man this week, as you can tell by the phone here. So Eric Horstman is the founder and president of Flyin to the Hoop, 17-year-old basketball showcase held annually in Kettering over Martin Luther King Day weekend. And for the last 17 years, they've been selling out Kettering Trent Arena, getting over 20,000 fans a year, getting over 100 college coaches a year, getting near 100 future Division I players a year. They've had NBA alumni from that event, over 50 of them, including guys like Anthony Davis, J.R. Smith, Rudy Gay, DeAndre Jordan, Tristan Thompson, Jaylen Brown, Andrew Wiggins. They've had a lot of good players, Eric.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what, just listening to those names brings back a lot of memories.
Absolutely, and those are only the non-Ohio guys. You know, some of just off the top of the head, the Ohio guys. You got Jalen Solinger, Trey Burke. Who else we got? Luke Kennard obviously was a big one. So B.J. Mullins, a lot of Ohio guys and a lot of national guys as well.
I'll tell you what, I think our count is up to 60 guys that are now either in the NBA or have played in the NBA. And I know, as well as you do, this coming June, there'll probably be quite a few more added to that list once the NBA draft for 2019 happens.
Right. Well, that's got to be exciting watching the draft every year and, having known that some of these guys got at least, a small part of their platform at your event. So let's start off in the beginning then. 17 years ago, what led to you putting together what became Flyin to the Hoop?
Man, I'll tell you what, it's an interesting story. And whenever I see Brooks Hall around town, who is a good friend of mine, and you probably remember a great Dayton Flyer alumni, I always tell Brooks that he is one of the main reasons why Flyin to the Hoop even exists. And the reason I say that is when he was at Troy High School, he was considered one of the best players in the country. And my nephew played on his basketball team at Troy. Well, they got invited to, at the time, the prestigious Slam Dunk to the Beach, which was held out in Lewis, Delaware, one year by Bobby Jacobs. And the long story short, we went out there to watch that event, and I got to know Bobby and some of the staff there very well, and I was impressed with the chaos that went on out there. That was when LeBron was out there, and he had quite a few NBAers himself, including Carmelo Anthony and such. But I was really impressed with the whole production, and he's like, hey, you ought to do one in Dayton, Ohio, just because Dayton is a hotbed for basketball, and I bet it'd really take off. So obviously we decided to do it a couple of years later, and here we are 17 years later, and I wouldn't even have imagined the monster that we have created in a good way.
Well, it's interesting that you say that with Dayton being a hotbed because it's not a big city, but what it is, especially, we talked about this on the podcast with different, guys like Kurt Stubbs that scout the whole state of Ohio. And, Dayton is probably the most fanatical basketball city in that high school basketball, college basketball is a really big deal in Dayton. It makes it a great place to host an event because of the local support, not just for Dayton kids, but also that these people have interest in watching national teams as well with no Dayton connection.
It's interesting that you said that because I've become good friends with Marquez Brunette, and he is the owner of SUV TV. They are the outfit that does our webcasting for us during the event, and they're out of Atlanta, Georgia. So he goes around quite a bit around the country to these different events. And the one thing that he told me several years ago why this event is his favorite to do is he goes, man, the people in Ohio and the people in Dayton that come to your event one, are fanatical, two, are there all day. You have packed crowds all day, and three, they're so knowledgeable for their basketball. It's really enjoyable that now these fans come out to see a great national matchup where there's no home kid, in the game, but yet these fans really appreciate good basketball around the area.
And then obviously it's better for Dayton when you've got a kid like Luke Kennard that's, being recruited at the highest level. AJ Harris, who went to Dayton Dunbar, comes to mind. But there's several schools in Dayton that I think have as good, if not better, fan support than anybody in the state. Like you look at Huber Heights, Wayne, Trotwood, Madison, Dayton, Dunbar, Springfield. I mean, there's some other ones, but those schools in particular, no matter good, bad, great, ugly, they're always going to come out and support basketball in their community.
Absolutely, and a little history lesson here. Trotwood, and remember Chris Wright, who also played as a Dayton Flyer, but his senior year at Trotwood, we had our very first sellout at Flyin to the Hoop because we put Trotwood, if you remember, against Oak Hill Academy, and that was when Brandon Jennings was with them. That was a great game, sold out. Oak Hill actually won in the last couple of minutes of the game, but very entertaining. And you're right, they're always coming out to support their local teams. And I tell the Rocky Rockholds of Trotwood and Nathan Martindales of Wayne that, hey, you guys are a good team, and unfortunately I got to have somebody to go up against these national teams every year, so you get to be the fodder this year. But there's been a lot of times in the past, and I know you've been present, when those local teams have actually put it on the national teams and really made a name for themselves on the national stage after this event.
That's why people want to come out. If the national teams were winning by 50 every year, you probably wouldn't get as good of attendance as you get. But Trotwood's competed with those guys. I remember a couple years ago, would have been 2015, I believe, when Huber Heights won Division I state title in Ohio. They beat Findlay Prep. Thurgood's been in the mix to beat Findlay Prep before. There's the famous game of Jaron Johnson at Dayton Dunbar beat was it Whitney Young? In one of Whitney Young. So
Whitney Young.
Yeah, though those kids get great exposure from the Dayton area for those games. But the fact that they're able to compete, tiny old Dayton, and then also the other Ohio teams, teams from Columbus, teams from Cincinnati, teams from Cleveland come down, and them being able to compete in those national games really, really makes it fun. And I would think that would kind of be the turning point to you is, when somebody like Wayne knocks off a big prep school, that's going to boost your attendance the next year with people knowing, hey, we've got a chance to win.
Absolutely. The other cool thing about it is now, and like we talked about, the fans around here that come to the event, and I've had people that haven't missed a game in 17 years, which is unbelievable. But these fans that come to the event, they now appreciate even the great basketball when they get to see a great Columbus or Cleveland or Cincinnati team. Or take, for instance, now in the past couple of years, you notice that on Friday night, we have the host school, Kettering Fairmont, but we have two games on Friday, and three of those four teams are national teams now. So you only have Kettering Fairmont as being the local game, and yet there'll still be 3,500 to 4,000 people in those stands that want to watch that 4- and 5-star talent, this year having an IMG Academy that's top 10 in the nation going against a Huntington Prep that's top 25 in the nation, and they know they're going to see those guys on ESPN and in the NBA someday, so they want to come out and see them when they were in high school.
Well, I remember a couple years ago, or maybe it's even less than that in time that's gone by, you guys tweeted out a poll and it said, what are people most interested in watching at Flyin to the Hoop? Is it top Ohio teams playing against each other? Is it a top Ohio team playing a national team? Or is it top national teams playing each other? And you guys certainly cater to all three schools of thought, but what do you think the people in this Dayton community are most interested in?
Here's the funny thing. We did that to get feedback. We got a lot of it. Our fans are rabid fans in a positive way. And it was almost split down the middle because they do enjoy, it was all three options, if you will. They love seeing the Ohio versus Ohio when it's teams that don't normally play each other. So like this year we have like a Garfield Heights versus Wayne, which will be a great one. They'd only match up if they were in the state title game, you know. They also want to see those Ohio versus those national teams. And then I was really surprised, but an equal number of folks wanted to see the national versus national because they want to see these juggernauts pound the crap out of each other. So at the end of the day, we were kind of surprised, but honestly, it was split almost 33, 33, 33 when it came to those three options.
Well, I've seen in the schedule, you guys have really tried to kind of balance that. And over the last couple of years, you did one thing which I think is an interesting move for your type of event, but it's been really fun, which is you have a game maybe each day on the full length days, that is, where you've got two small schools that play each other. So if you come in the morning to Flyin the Hoop and you're going to see maybe some smaller Ohio teams play. As the day goes, you're going to see some Ohio versus Ohio, then some Ohio versus national, and then towards the end of the day, you kind of have your marquee national games. So if you really look at the schedule, if you're somebody who doesn't want to be there all day but wants to be a part of the event, you can really pick and choose what you want to see.
Absolutely. And like I said, when I first started this event, is sure we wanted to give local kids a chance to play on a national stage or a stage they might never get a chance to play on. Well, that's not fair to some of these smaller schools out there. So we made a point to spread the love, if you will, and we have great small school matchups every year. I mean, this year for the first time coming down is Convoy Crestview, who right now is, one of the top teams in the state for Division IV, taking on Minster. So we get to show some of the smaller schools love as well.
Well, that game, Minster Convoy Crestview, it's not going to be IMG Huntington Prep. You're not going to see windmill dunks and all this. But that being said, if you're a true basketball fan, that's going to be a really, really good high school basketball game. Different style. They play really good ball up there in Northwest Ohio, especially in those small towns. And, as a basketball fan, it's really a complete experience. You're going to see the fast-paced, great athletes in the national teams. But you watch a Convoy Crestview play, and it's a really pure form of basketball that, you would see on a Friday night, but you'd have to drive to a really remote area to see it.
Very, very true. And that's why we try to accommodate all of the fans' wishes. And that's almost a perfect segue into, as you well know, that 3 years ago, I got to hear about it all the time in the public just asking. So we decided to add a girls' game to the event. So now it's kind of become an annual tradition that we put a girls' game at the first game on Saturday. And that has gone over really well. And this year, I mean, sometimes it looks like we have a crystal ball, but sometimes you just get lucky. And right now, this year, we have the Minster girls playing the Carroll girls. And right now, the Minster girls are ranked number 1 in Division IV, and the Carroll girls are ranked number 1 in Division II. So that in of itself is going to be a great game.
Have you thought about doing a full girls event before?
I thought about it, but come Tuesday morning of this event, I sleep for like 3 months, and then when I get up, I start planning for Flyin the Hoop 2020. So I would like to do it. We are thinking about doing that, but I also know that they have the country, I forget what it's called, but the other girls event.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's the exact same weekend. So, I don't know that. We've also thought about doing another event at a different time throughout the year. And then we've also been asked to try to do a Flyin to the Hoop South. I can just tell you that if we do an event or when we do an event, I would just make sure that it is absolutely the same quality that people get over this weekend, because I don't want to quote unquote cheapen it. I want to make sure that 1, there's quality competition on the floor, and 2, we give the fan the best experience that we can, and we try to do everything we can for those teams, for the fans, for you, the media, and, for everybody that's in attendance.
And then it's hard to find good weekends. I mean, you look at like December, holiday season is so polluted with, a million different events and everything. And then, January, there's already a lot of things. The play-by-play classics are big in Ohio and different cities throughout the month. There's a couple other events. Martin Luther King weekend, with having kind of a 3.5 day window and, such a great arena, you can really pack a lot of people in and get a lot of basketball. So, doing it somewhere else, and I don't know the schedule in other states if you talk about the South, but it would be a little bit of a challenge.
Right, exactly. And, I said a long time ago with me and the staff and the other folks that are a part of the event, if you build it, they will come. And that's what we have tried to do. And each year try to one up ourselves if we can. And again, just make sure that we pay attention to the little details, and we try to, I know it's impossible, but you try to make everybody happy. And last year, as you well know, me and Mother Nature went round and round, and she is not invited this year, but we'll see what happens. But again, every year you have those challenges that the public doesn't see that we're dealing with behind the scenes, that hopefully in their eyes everything went off smoothly, trying to look at it from a 10,000-foot view, but, dealing with all of these details behind the scenes, making sure your national teams can make it to Dayton without any flight delays and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always a variable. Unfortunately, Dayton's better than if you look at like the Cleveland, Akron area in terms of weather, and hasn't been too bad. But it affected me last year a little bit. I remember that. So let's talk about the process of selecting teams. I think this is probably done more in advance than people think. So how do you guys go about selecting teams? And then I think even more interestingly, how do you guys go about selecting the matchups of those teams?
Well, as you know, some of the folks, yourself and others in your profession, I've become good friends with that see a lot of basketball. And a good friend of mine is John Stovall, that used to live in this area but is now out in Oregon. He and I kind of get together really at the event and shortly after to start putting kind of a wish list of, hey, here are going to be the phenomenal national teams. Here's who we know is going to be great in the state of Ohio. And we may start reaching out to them in the spring. Obviously, like anything that you build and has some success to it, in the early days, people were like, what's the Premier Health Flyin to the Hoop? Why would I go there over the 15 other events that are around the nation? But now, it is definitely a blessing, and we're very humbled by it, but it's also kind of a curse, because we literally, in no exaggeration, have upwards of 150 plus teams every year that want to be a part of this event. So the problem is whittling it down to who would be make for the best matchups, who have the marquee players, who are going to be the great teams, who can we accommodate to, hey, they're going to be in this city on Monday. Could we put this game on Saturday against another national power? So all of those come into the mix. And now it's become even more of a problem and more prevalent, and I know you realize this more than anybody, are these transfers. It drives us crazy. So we literally are putting teams on the roster, but we don't put the matchups together till probably the end of summer, because we're trying to wait to see where all these transfers settle to.
It's going to have to be the first day of school nowadays.
Well, and nowadays, sometimes it's not even that, because all of a sudden, in this case, and let's just talk about the pink elephant in the room, hey, Spire Academy, we already had them on the schedule because they were loaded with some transfers from Michigan, and then boom, LaMelo Ball drops into play.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to ask you about LaMelo Ball here in a minute, but the matchups are probably the most fun thing to see when the schedule comes out. You're like, oh, this team plays that team and everything, or this team, they've got a really good kid. Each team's got a really good guard. Or they get to play against a national team, but it's certainly a point of pride down in Southwest Ohio. Living here, I see it. I talk to people, and when the schedule comes out, there'll be maybe 3 Cincinnati teams, and there'll always be 1 or 2 other Cincinnati teams telling me like, man, we're better than this team, we should have got in instead of them. So I'm sure you have to have some tough conversations, but it's really fun, and it's a great source of pride. The kids really embrace the moment and love the opportunity to play in it.
Well, I told you, we decided to start this event, after the whole slam dunk to the beach, trip, but I wanted to put an event on that gave local kids, since I'm from around the area, gave local kids to get that national exposure. Again, never really dreamed it would become what it is, which we're very blessed at. But the 2 pieces of pride that I have, that I'm most proud of, if you will, because of this event and living in this area, is one, when the city of Dayton does an economic impact study, and this little high school event in January in Dayton, Ohio, has an economic impact of $1.9 million to the local economy. That gives me a sense of pride. And even more so when we have a press conference or we are in front of the media and I get a coach that stands up and looks at the media and says, as a direct result of my team playing in this last year, 2 of my kids got scholarship offers. Man, that makes me feel good knowing that they might be able to continue their career because of this event, where maybe some of these high-profile coaches are coming to see other kids at the event, but all of a sudden they're like, who the heck is that? Who the heck is that? And that really makes me feel good to know that these guys might have a chance to play in college because of the exposure that they got during Flyin to the Hoop weekend.
And that's what you see, and that's obviously the business I'm in, and that's what you see with not just the scouting services and media that attend, but any Division I school in the state of Ohio is going to make sure that they poke their head in, whether it's a big Division I, small Division I, or even Division II schools, and just see what they see. And you've got an idea of some of the guys you're going to watch, but you also might get to see a young kid for the first time, and there's great opportunities there, and it's fun. And then the talent this year is so strong, and like you said, one of the things that everybody's talking about this year, the biggest thing, you told me your phone's blowing up, and I assume that all has to do with Spire. And what type of environment is it going to be with LaMelo Ball? And I don't really know in terms of seeing the kid. I don't know if he's the greatest player in the world or if he's just a good, not great player, but either way, the publicity around it is just unbelievable.
Yeah, there's definitely a buzz to it. It was funny because, and again, it's a blessing and a curse. At the end of the day, I remember when they were at Chino Hills and we're always asking, hey, who'd you like to see next year? And everybody was blowing up our phones. Bring Chino Hills out here. And I was like, man, I don't really think I want to deal with that circus. Well, guess what? We're dealing with that circus anyway. Again, we put Spire Academy on there because, one, they were going to be loaded anyway. And then however it happened, LaMelo Ball is now playing there. So it has been kind of chaotic. I realize that a lot of our new fans, if you will, are getting tickets for that Monday, which is why we're sold out already for, that game. But I'd be remiss in saying that, hey, don't get me wrong, Spire versus Prolific is going to be one hell of a game, but there's going to be other awesome games around it and all weekend. I mean, right now we're still at about 100 tickets left for Saturday. So that really has no bearing on the Spire effect, but LaMelo is an attraction right now just because of the chaos that his father, commands. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent, he's getting visibility. He's getting free marketing for his brand. But at the end of the day, it's one kid on a team, Aspire, and people are going to be able to come out and see him play. I guess everything is going well. Again, he wasn't on the roster when we first put this together. He is on the roster now, so I assume he'll be here on that Monday. And we'll get to see in person if he is the real deal or not.
Well, it's exciting that he's coming. And, with all the back and forth you've seen with Ohio high school teams, some of them want to play and some of them don't. And, there's some gray area there. So, I'm not going to really get into the debate on there. I understand both sides of the coin, but, it's more convenient for you that they're playing a national game. So you don't have to worry about that. But, for guys who are, pure basketball guys, like I would consider myself, you want to see a certain structured level of basketball and everything. And, LaMelo doesn't really cater to that. But what he does cater to is what it's ultimately supposed to be about at the high school level, which is it's supposed to be fun. And people come to Flyin to the Hoop, they might not even remember a few years ago some of the guys, like they saw Andrew Wiggins. They might not remember if Wiggins' team won or not, but they had fun watching the game because of the highlights, because of the environment. And, worst case scenario, I think that's what Spire is going to bring this year.
Exactly, and people are like, why didn't you move it to the end of the day and make it the headliner and what have you? Hey, the schedule is what the schedule is. We do, and a lot of people, just so your listeners know, a lot of people always wonder, why do you always put the national teams earlier on Monday instead of later? Well, as much as a lot of people would like to smirk at this, they are considered high school teams, and they have to get back for class. So all of the national teams like Prolific Prep are flying out later that afternoon. So that's why we always tailor and put more of the Ohio versus Ohio matchups on later in the evening, which are going to be great matchups in and of itself. But that's why the game is earlier in the day. And it will be fun just as the rest of the weekend will. And we're going to have a lot of great basketball.
Well, outside of Spire, you talked about some of them, but who are some of maybe the marquee kids or marquee teams that people, if you're just an Ohio basketball fan, you might not know about that we're going to see this year?
Well, I'll tell you what. Just looking at kind of some of the matchups and the teams, because Stovall and I were talking the other day that they come out with these rankings all the time, but in one of the latest rankings that I saw, we have 6 of the top 25 teams in the nation that are going to be here. So going back to that Friday night game, you've got IMG Academy versus Huntington Prep, which are 2 of the top teams, top 20 teams in the nation. IMG is like 2 or 3, whichever poll you look at. They're loaded. They're going to have between the 2 teams, I think they have 4 or 5 stars. 4 or 5 5-stars on the team. So that in and of itself is a future NBA game right there. The game before that, which is kind of intriguing to me, Kettering Fairmont is playing very good basketball. We have a Canadian team coming down called Crestwood Prep. They're 2 studs. One is going to Wake Forest that I can't remember his name, but then their young stud, which I'm sure you know more about than I do, he's an 8th grader playing varsity. He's supposed to be the number 1 8th grader in North America by the name of Elijah Fisher. Have you ever had a chance to see him before?
I haven't seen him. I've heard a lot about it, and there's a rumor, I don't know if it's true or not, that his team is playing against a small little prep school down here in Cincinnati, and if that matriculates, I'm going to go to the game. But I've heard a lot about that name, at least Elijah Fisher.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting, and then you've got a new national team on the horizon out of Arizona called Bella Vista Prep. I hadn't even heard of them this time last year. Now they're in the top 20 in the nation, and I think they just won the Chick-fil-A tournament or something over the holidays. So they have skyrocketed with a bunch of Division I athletes. Another national team we have coming is Oak Ridge out of Florida that is a top national team, and it's a, if you will, normal public school, and they're going to be taking on Hilliard Bradley. That is one of the top teams in Division I right now. So that is going to be an unbelievable matchup in my mind on Saturday afternoon. Then we have Prolific Prep coming in. Prolific Prep has been here ever since they started. They're from California. They had Gary Trent Jr., they had Josh Jackson, who are now in the NBA. They're reloaded again, and they're going to be taking on Springfield on Saturday night, which is a good Dayton team here. And then on Monday, they're playing a second game, and that's that game against Spire. So, again, a lot of the national teams, there's a reason. People are always like, Bella Vista, why do you have them? Well, at the end of the day, there's a reason why they're on the schedule, because either they're supposed to be a top team in the nation or they've got some top players in the nation. And then, again, I could make a case for all of these games, but I'm also looking forward to the very last game of the event on Monday night, which I think is a great ending to the event. You've got Trotwood versus Pickerington Central, which is, both top 2 in Division I and top 2 in Division II, if not number 1 for each of those divisions. That should be a whale of a game.
As an Ohio guy, those are the games that I like the most. Yeah, that's going to be a heck of a basketball game. And, it's the only thing I'll say to Pickerington Central, and they've got a great team, is it is hard to beat Trotwood, Madison, and Dayton. So Trotwood's going to have that place is going to be rock. It's going to feel like it's at Trotwood, even though it's neutral. So, but no, that'll be a real fun basketball game.
And that's what we try to put together. The night before, you got Sonny Johnson coming down here, Mr. Charismatic himself, out of Cleveland and Garfield Heights, with those talented son and nephew on the team playing Wayne. Wayne may be down a little bit this year, but they're always a strong team. And that's the other thing that I enjoy is it's like everybody tries to bring their A game to our event every year. They may be struggling a little bit, but I've heard so many coaches say that was the turning point in our season. They really came together. They really wanted to do a good showing at Flyin to the Hoop, and that was great going into our tournament run.
Well, everybody's talking to me in the state of Ohio about how good the freshman class is in Ohio, and you've got Sonny's son playing. You've got Chris Livington and Akron Bookdale, who people think is a top 5 player in the country. Maybe you've got one of my friends, Paul McMillan, his son. Paul McMillan, the 3rd, the 4th, something like that, is playing at Cincinnati Hughes. So you're going to get, the Ohio fans are probably going to get their first high school look at a lot of really good young players too. And hopefully we've got a lot of good young players in the state.
Yeah. And again, like you mentioned, and we talked about earlier, the challenge sometimes is Sometimes Ohio's a little down on talent. Sometimes Ohio is really up on talent. And the struggle is, okay, I do want to do those Ohio versus national teams. We just got to make sure that, some of the survey fans filled out that go, hey, don't schedule blowouts. I'm like, really? Do you really think we sit down and go, hey, we need to put this together because it's going to be a blowout? On paper, we're trying to put the matchups as close together, as intriguing as we can. Sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss. And I know you've been there personally for a lot of those buzzer beaters that are awesome. I love those.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's a great environment. The last thing I want to talk about, I want to compliment is when I look back at Flying to the Hoop year after year, I honestly, Eric, this is going to sound crazy, I rarely even think about the basketball. And, the thing I enjoy about the event is getting to see a lot of my buddies that, I don't get to see throughout the year all the time, and getting to hang out in between games, during games, the hotel at night, the hospitality there is always great. So it's a really fun environment, and which you look at, especially, everybody knows where the section is in Trent Arena, right there on the court side across from one of the benches, where it's really just as much of a social event for basketball people as much as it is an actual basketball event. And, that's something you look forward to all year.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because it's so ironic. We were just talking about the same thing in some ways, and I think you would agree. It's almost like a family reunion every year. I mean, we're walking through the Trent Arena, and it could have been like last week. You feel like you're just there. We have the same volunteers that we have had for 15 to 17 years. You get to know Steve, my buddy, that's at the VIP table, media table. All these folks, from the sponsors to the coaches to the media to a lot of the teams to our fans. It's kind of like a homecoming or family reunion every year, where it has become, wow, I don't know what would happen if there was a big hole during Martin Luther King weekend, because it just feels right to be in that environment for that crazy weekend. We're all excited for it, and by Monday night, we're all exhausted, but ready to do it again a year later.
Well, good deal. Well, the last thing I want to do is make a request for you.
What is that?
So, it's something talked about, and that is, you guys have a great media hospitality, great VIP hospitality for some of the basketball guys that come around, and you got the Frickers chicken. Can we get full size plates here? You got some big boys here, man. We need to eat good, so
listen to that.
We need some full.
Oh,
I'm just telling you how I feel.
I know. The problem is we meant for it to be kind of a snacking thing, and now people like you and Stovall want to eat us out of house and home. With it growing every year and the numbers going through that room that get bigger and bigger, I'm like, man, we're going to have Dixie cups and tea plates here pretty soon, because Frickers is unbelievable, as you well know. They restock that hospitality room and do that 17 times through the weekend by running back and forth to their restaurant. So hats off to them. They are a great partner of ours, just like Premier Health, just like a lot of these sponsors that help me make this possible, and we couldn't do it without them. But we like to say, like I said, first class or not at all. And again, I know I'm saying this a little biased, but I'd like to know if any of your media friends or fellow fans or coaches out there would like to tell me an event that tries to take care of you guys as much as we do.
I like to say that the other events have great hospitality rooms. They're called concession stands, and you guys do a great job feeding us, and we certainly appreciate it. The people the Frischers girls do a great job, because they deal with a circus, because you got people like me that are, there's 20 minutes between games, and you're trying to do your writing and also get something to eat, and it's hectic in there, and they do it's a small area, and they do a great job.
Yeah, considering that, if I was to redesign my own Trent Arena or anything like that, besides add a couple of more seats, I would have done 2 extra things. And I know this is the pie in the sky stuff, but I would have made the hospitality room a little bit bigger. And honestly, I would have liked to have had a media room. But as you well know, I mean, we're out of room in that place. There is nothing else where I can cram anything from all of our supplies, the teams, to hospitality, to everything else we have going on.
I understand. Well, no, everything is great. We appreciate what you guys do. We're looking forward to it. So coming up here, just about a week and a half?
Week and a half. Believe me, I have it on my countdown.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, if anybody still wants to get tickets, where can they go, Eric?
Right now, what we're doing is they're still for sale online. After this weekend, I think we have them for sale online on Monday, but starting on Sunday, anything that's bought online, we're just going to put it at will call because we're not going to chance the U.S. Postal Service messing something up or not getting it to tickets on time. I'm telling a lot of people that the participating schools that opted to sell tickets at their athletic departments should still have some, and we absolutely we have some at River Valley Credit Union, which is down here in Dayton. There are 6 branches that they have tickets. But we absolutely will be selling tickets at the door like we normally do if they are available. So that's why we're always telling people to follow, like I know you do, our Twitter or Facebook accounts at Flyin to the Hoop, just because we'll put information about from schedule changes, weather incidents to ticket sales.
That's great. Well, that's where you can get your tickets, guys. That's where you can stay up to date. And I know you guys are also good about putting the box scores up there so you can get all your information there on social media. So, Eric, thank you so much for coming on. We really enjoyed it.
I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I look forward to seeing you 10 days from now.
We'll see you 10 days from now. Guys, that was the Triple Double Podcast with guest Eric Horstman. For Jason Morrow, I'm Corey Albertson. Thanks for listening. This podcast is brought to you by PlayEasy.com. For players, coaches, or casual athletes looking to book a sports facility, as well as owners and managers of sports facilities, PlayEasy.com is the new one-stop site for streamlined services. If you're looking for a place to practice, play, host your tournament, camp, or other, simply go to PlayEasy.com and create a booking request for your area. Your request will go out to surrounding facilities who will respond with their best offer. Once you receive the offer that best fits your needs, book the facility and you're ready to play. For facility owners and managers, PlayEasy puts the power in your hands to maximize the usage and visibility of your facility. Register your facility for free today at PlayEasy.com. PlayEasy.com is the booking site built by athletes, coaches, and facility managers, and is proud to help bring you the Triple Double Podcast. This podcast is also brought to you by Anago Cleaning Systems. Are you tired of struggling in a dead-end job? If so, Anago Cleaning Systems has what you're looking for, an opportunity to go into business for yourself, but not by yourself. With franchising opportunities available for as little as a $2,500 down payment, purchasing an Anago franchise has never been easier. Once you own your Anago franchise, you're licensed to clean commercial facilities all around the greater Cincinnati, Dayton, or Columbus areas with the support of Anago's sales, quality control, operational, and accounting staff. Call 513-332-0033 today for your opportunity to be your own boss and grow your own commercial cleaning company under the guidance of Anago's proven and successful system. Again, call 513-332-0033 to learn more. With Anago, your future starts today.